Hello and welcome to a very special episode with someone who has just authored some time back an excellent book on Test cricket. It's called Test Cricket, A History. Tim Wigmore joining me today here in Oxford, cricket writer with The Telegraph, author of multiple books. All of these are Tim's books. We'd planned this from India. In fact, I was reading it before I came over and requested Tim, can we meet and physically do this interview? He agreed, so there you go. Not the best weather, it's still raining here, but that's fine. This book will give you the lift that you need in such weather. Tim, first things first, this is a labor of love. Could not have been done in 1 or 2 years. Tell me the backstory of this book.
Yeah, well, firstly, apologies for the British summer weather. Not what we had in mind. The book, thank you very much, took 5 years from inception to completion. A huge kind of labour of love. Talked to over 40 great Test cricketers, a number of Indians. Talked to Rahul Dravid, Ravichandran Ashwin, Sachin Tendulkar, Jinky Rahane, and heaps of great cricketers around the world. It's really a book about the players, matches and politics that have shaped Test cricket, so it's very much about stories.
When you do a book with such big a scope, the range is what kind of defines this book for me. What was the motivation? That, people do it, okay, one particular country, in my case I've done India, but to be able to do this 1877 to now, what was the motivation behind that?
Well, kind of as you said, there have been lots of really great bits of history on one country, or actually quite a lot on like the Ashes as a rivalry. But there hasn't really been something that's kind of joined up everything and got a sense of how the format evolves and why around the world, and how actually what happens in one country shapes what happens elsewhere. And I felt by looking at it in a kind of interconnected way, you can actually shine a light on all the countries in a different way, because you're seeing them in context with each other as opposed to just one story as it's coming up. So of course the book could have been 5 or 10 volumes rather than that, but it's intended to be read as like a narrative history, from A to Z. And it's,
See, when I read it, and I read almost about 3/4 before I came over. For me, because I've specialized in India, I would have said, okay, a little bit more on India.
You'll find your book in the bibliography.
Yes, I've seen that. I've seen 3 references there. Very, very, very happy about it. But the Tendulkar chapter.
Yeah.
When you look at, so as Tendulkar's biographer, when he and I worked on Playing It My Way, it is kind of difficult for me to move away from Tendulkar.
Yeah.
Okay, in your case, this chapter kind of was standout for me, because this was a very different view of Tendulkar from the outside, yet giving the man his due in the world cricket echelon. Can you talk to me about, if I have to break the book down in your thing, 150 years of Test cricket, right?
Yeah.
What are the 4 or 5 landmarks you would say that anyone who's reading this book should keep this in mind?
Well, just on sort of Sachin, I think, kind of again looking from the outside, the most amazing thing is that away from home, India only win 1 of his first 44 Test matches away from home, which, to think of how strong India now, that's an astonishing thing. So the fact with Tendulkar that he does, in fact, I'd argue the best of him as a batsman is probably like the mid-late 1990s, when India are still losing all these matches away from home. And so there you have a kind of a great player in a not brilliant team. India in this time are quite odd, because at home they're formidable. They don't lose a series throughout the whole 1990s. So they're a Jekyll and Hyde team completely. To sort of, honestly, to take a step back, one of the takeaways for me was actually how bad India were, frankly, for so long in Test cricket. India until 2001 Kolkata, which is the game that kind of begins to change everything. They are losing basically 2 Test matches for every one that they're winning, and away from home, I think their record is 114, lost 70. So India actually, it's amazing. Like 25 years on, how strong India are now, and the sort of fast bowlers they can win anywhere. That actually, it kind of took so long is amazing. And I suppose with Tendulkar, it does illustrate that actually, with kind of batting, the importance of batting and bowling. Actually, you think it does show that the bowling generally is a bit more important. And I think the history of Test cricket, one of my takeaways is the most important thing for winning matches is how good your fast bowlers are. Because if you think of that 1 in 44 Tendulkar, well, if any bowler had done that well, the sort of performance they love, because even if their batting was terrible, that he'd have taken 10, 12 wickets in a Test, and they would have burgled some Test matches. Whereas as a batsman, you can do a huge amount and you're very important, but your bowlers can't take 20 wickets, then you're not going to win matches.
But same time, Tim, when you're this is on the ground. What is also interesting to me is what was happening backstage, the economics of the game, the politics of the game. You use the word politics at the start of this show. That for me is as fascinating. I mean, think about it, Australian cricketers did not travel to India. You know, say up to the 1970s, 1980s, even England teams, India was looked out like a backwater. This whole dynamic changed almost with Tendulkar. With globalization, with the Indian market opening up, you are seeing a completely different story. And now it is, all of us know, you've got to go and play in India. Despite a war happening, you have to still go back and play because India rules, right? India rules the economics of the sport. Are you kind of worried with this one country dominance that test match cricket is also reliant on Indian money?
So we're in England, you know, obviously, as we can tell from the rain. And yeah, India Test Series in England, they don't, from 1990 to 2002, they only come for one single tour, which is a 3-match tour, which is
correct.
So it's incredible, like looking back, that sort of team, you know, and England don't go to India between 1993 and 2001 as well.
Yes.
So you do have a situation where England and Australia are not as keen to play India, and now, of course, they're desperate to play India as much as possible. And in fact, in the 1980s, England and Australia had been desperate for West Indies to come as much as possible. That had been the thing, and now West Indies are not the same draw that they used to be. So again, what we think of as kind of this fact has only been, it's actually in kind of historical terms fairly recent. Which goes, to a few things. So England and Australia had this veto at the ICC, which was really unfair until 93, and therefore they're kind of running the game. They don't run it very well. You know, one of the things talked about in the book, there was missed opportunities all the time. You could have had USA, Argentina, which would have been great. And imagine the tours to Buenos Aires, New York, and things would have been really, really fun. But yeah, cricket now is an interesting play. Clearly, like. Yeah, so the money and the interest from India is a real asset to cricket, and I suppose the question is how that's balanced to make a structure that kind of works for enough countries. So actually, for me, the World Test Championship is really, really important.
I was about to ask that kind of given the format context, the World Test Championship, how important do you think that was as an innovation?
So when I talked with Kane Williamson, it very much came across that winning the WTC, this might be painful for some, but it was very, it was like the best day of his professional career. And it was, Ross Ayres said this kind of made up for Lord's 19 losing the World Cup final. So that's great, because you can't just have three countries, Australia, England and India play these great series amongst each other, but you can't just say, if you're not part of those three countries, you don't get to reach the pinnacle of the Test game. So for me, the WTC is a really important innovation. The problem with it is that the structure is is really confusing. This kind of percentage of points contested is really confusing. So, for me, and I do talk about, I think a really good model would be this kind of everyone plays everyone thing is interesting, because in American sports, that's not the norm. The Champions League now, you have this massive group, but not everyone plays everyone. So I don't think everyone needs to play everyone necessarily, and given kind of politics realities, that's not going to change. So my model would be, what I would like to see is everyone plays 6 series, 3 at home and 3 away over the cycle. But the tests, I would have 3-match series of 4 days each, which would really help and actually creates more of a narrative. So when South Africa play New Zealand, that should be, and then you have 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, and I would have the top team go to the final, 2v3 in a playoff before. I think that creates more of a really good structure to deal with. And then, when India play Australia or the Ashes, you can have 2 matches extra, which already have the context. They don't need to be part of the WTC set context. It's every other series we should be worrying about.
As far as I'm concerned with the WTC, the other thing is we only have the final so far in England. England has not made the final even once.
Yeah.
I would say that can also be changed, because you are actually saying, so why not the subcontinent? Why not some other place where a team from that side, so go play in Sri Lanka, go play in Bangladesh, go play in some other country there. But the moment you come in and play in England, New Zealand and Australia, for example, even if you play India, will have a better chance. So that way, I think that structure needs to be also relooked at. But the other chapter that I want to talk about is Bazball. Where is English cricket? Because for us in India, it kind of, when it happened, and McCullum and all of that, we were all dazzled, okay, great. But is it kind of becoming unidimensional? Are you worried about that as well? And the second question is there a commonality between India and England treating its greats in a manner which may be not what we want to see?
So I think with Bazball, the thing that you kind of can't really forget enough is how much England was struggling before Bazball happened. So England won one test in 17 before, and they were playing not just losing, but they were playing very defensive cricket. It was grim. It was grim to watch, and the players said it was grim to play as well. So they've started from that very low base. Under McCullum and Stokes, they've won basically 2 tests for every defeat. So it's a much improved record. Clearly, it's like this isn't putting them amongst the great test teams, and there's probably been some excessive hype. I mean, last year England won 9 tests, they lost 8, so they were a bit better than the 50-50 team. And you know, England still haven't, under Bazball, they haven't beaten India, they haven't beaten Australia. So there are those questions about what it can do against the very best teams. I think also the question of being predictable is interesting. You know, there's an element of, you know, we talked about, you know, when Australia. They had that series win in India in 2004, which is the final frontier as they call it. And Adam Gilchrist and John Buchanan were saying actually when they lost that previous series in 01, looking back, they thought they were too predictable because they would always be gung-ho. And Australia actually end up, they bowl drier and they score a bit slower, and yet they win in India. So there is an element of, you can have your kind of identity of being attacker, but you need to be able to adapt as well.
Yes.
And I think the danger for England is if they are a bit predictable. And to be fair, I think England have made some kind of refinements in the last year. They are trying to have different ways of playing. It's how that all translates. But I think what happened with Bazball was great, but I don't think it's not in itself going to, you know, guarantee anything. But I think as an intent it is revolutionary. But the difference with, say, you know, the war against Australian teams is that was revolutionary in intent, and it was also winning so many games. England have sort of done the first, they haven't really done the second as yet.
Last question. Except in England, except in Australia. We were in Australia for the Border Gavaskar Trophy.
Yeah.
85,000 people at the MCG.
Record-breaking crowds.
Every day. Both Shomishta and I, we were there. Sydney, 50,000 each day. Even, you know, the last day when everybody knew that the match would be over in 2 hours, there was 50,000 people. This country and Australia, I totally say yes. Even in India, crowds aren't coming to watch Test cricket. As someone who has authored Test cricket, a history, are you worried about the future of the red ball game?
So actually looking at the history, it's amazing that people have always been so worried about the future. So you have, you know, in the 1890s, the people are saying, oh, these guys used to play for the badge, now they just they're just playing for the money now. So these debates are kind of circular in a way. Certainly when one-day cricket becomes really big in the 70s, people are then thinking, oh, is Test cricket going to be finished? So the fact Test cricket has endured despite these struggles kind of shows it's worth fighting for, it's worth keeping. And, you know, talking to the players I did, you get a real sense of how much they value playing the game. They see themselves as part of a story that's bigger than themselves, which I don't think you get in, you know, the short formats as much. The challenge is to make a game that kind of that works for everybody, and that involves, I think as well. I think there needs to be windows, even if it's just 3 windows a year, of 3 weeks or something, where you can have every team in the World Championship is playing and they're at full strength, and you don't have the kind of competition of T20 leagues. And one of the things that you occasionally do see, actually, when you have multiple tests at the same time, actually the narrative of one can kind of lend itself to another, and actually it enriches the experience.
Like Boxing Day.
Exactly. It doesn't, and that day when England beat India in Hyderabad and Australia lose West Indies at the Gabba as well, it's sort of like the double miracle. Yeah, exactly. And so, and you know, you can have the thing of, you know, England needs whatever, West Indies to do them a favour to qualify, or whatever it can be. So you have all these. So I would like to see that, I think, and then you have, and you probably need to be doing more to pay the players. It's always got to be in players' interest financially to play for their country. But I think, you need an element of kind of using the money from T20 to subsidise what you see in Test cricket, and I think that is, you know, I think people do support that. You need administration to get their heads together. So yeah, there are challenges for sure, but there have always been challenges. So I was actually probably more optimistic writing the book than I had been at the start.
You know, that's the best part of this interview, the optimism, because I have always been a nut and a purist, and exactly like Tim said, Test cricket has always had its share of challenges, but like the format, it has been tested but has come out triumphant. I agree with him about Test match cricket and more money. Take a Cheteshwar Pujara. When you think what he has done in Australia, for example, and then you think that someone who plays 4 overs of the IPL makes 20 times the money, you're like, is this fair? But you know what? Life is unfair. Test match cricket needs innovation for sure, but I don't think the format has any problems going forward.
Yeah, just to say what you said as well, people say, you're spot on, because people say, oh, it's such a conservative game. Actually, the history of Test cricket is this game has always changed. You know, you used to have three-day Test matches, timeless. Now we have 5 days. You know, the balls per over has been 4, 5, 6, and 8. We used to have uncover wickets. Now we have cover wickets.
The no ball, everything.
The no balls. The helmets was a really important one. Now
Correct.
we have day-night Test, the WTC as well. So actually, part of the reason why Test cricket has endured for so long is because it has adapted. And yeah, I think for me, with combination of draws dwindling and the cost of these kind of ghost fifth days that don't happen, and then the extra boost you give to Test cricket from the narrative of having multi-match series, I think, you know, when it's not a big 3 series, I think it's much better if that is 3 tests times 4 days each than 2 tests of 5 days each. So that, and therefore that's one of the things I do suggest as well.
Yeah. So I'll end there, but once again I recommend Test Cricket, A History by Tim Wigmore. Pick it up. You can get it in India. Hachette has published it. Pick it up. If you are a Test cricket follower, a tragic, a nut, an interested party, this is your book to do. My English Summer, well taken care of with all of Tim's books. Just hope India is competitive, otherwise he'll be all after me. Thank you very much, folks, for watching. That's Tim Wigmore. He'll have a lot to do with us right through the English Summer. Thank you very much for watching.